Welcome to the How to Hero YouTube channel. My name's Sean, and I am here to help awaken the hero within you. There's a hero within all of us. Today, we're going to be talking about what demons and light and dark and lots of fun stuff with my boy Adam. How are you today, Adam?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, Sean. Thanks for that awesome intro. So the format of today is we're going to go dark to light, right? I think that's the name of this. We're going to name it. We actually don't ever even know what we're going to talk about. We just did like a 2-minute powwow, and we're just gonna go after it because the universe likes to speak through us. And with all the fear that's out there right now, and with all of the confusion, and we'll even talk about the law of confusion again today. That was really mind blowing last week. But in reality, I really want to talk about where we're at in the human muck right now, where we're moving to by December 21st, focusing on love, and then what the new year is going to bring and what that looks like. But I know you all love talking about dark entities as much as I do, and I want to just let Sean go take it from the top and tell us a little bit about when you're channeling the nine and that whole thing and kind of a little bit backstory of that, because I remember you
Sure.
just kind of connected with them recently,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, it's
So,
fairly recent. Yeah.
and then
Um, so
the dark entities. Go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, so I guess I'll start with how I perceive dark entities, dark attachments, or demonic attachments. Um, and what the where we would start with that is there's multiple different ways that we can approach that topic, right? The first thing that we need to understand is that all of it is part of a balance, part of a necessary balance in order to see light, right? um, so the darkness we see in the world and the darkness we see in ourselves, the darkness that we perceive in the societal kind of constructs, all of that stuff is there as contrast for us to see the light, which most of us know. But there are different ways that we can think about what a negative attachment is. So I've talked about egregores a little bit in the past, and essentially these are conscious entities that are looking to gain power, right? Um, these are egregores. They're not in a physical form. They're empowered by the human collective. So those are some of the dark attachments that we can have, right? They're not going to come in and harm you, right? Like that's not really how they work. What they do is they exploit weaknesses within your auric field, right? They exploit aspects of yourself that you haven't embraced fully, that type of thing. So for example, like a dark entity, like let's say somebody has they used to have an addiction to opiates, or they had actually, let's say they have a broken arm and they start taking opiates and become addicted to the opiates. Now their arm's healed, right? However, there's still maybe some damage in the arm, right? There's still some discomfort or whatever. A negative entity would use that discomfort, that physical malfunction, and the way that the mind is perceiving that malfunction in the body to exploit that to cause a pain flare up, which will then cause the body to go want an opiate, right? Cause the human to be like, oh, I can fight this. I just have to take my meds. And in that way, that the entity wins by putting the human into sort of a docile state, right? A state of they're less connected, they're more numbed, right? They're that type of thing. Um, and so these entities exploit mostly that way. They don't. It's not like they come and attack, right? They exploit some aspect of self that is unguarded by you. It's unloved, and so it's not encompassed by the light.
Is there entities that can attack you, and how does that work if you can't see something? How does something interact with the organic world that we can't see? Because is that real? When, like, I know Paranormal Activity, that movie wasn't real, but I
Right.
know I feel like those types of things have happened. How
Mm-hmm.
do how do ghosts and entities actually interact with us and our world?
Essentially, the mind, for if there's an energetic residue, so what those entities are typically are an outpouring of energetic residue that's got left in a plane between our environment and the afterlife, right? Like they're sort of stuck, and it's an energy. It's the way I understand it, and what I believe is that it's a non-sentient type of energy. It just runs a repeating pattern, right? It if it's, let's say it's an energy that's in a room, that's a negative, very demonic type energy, uh, something horrible happened here and this energy got left, um, people will have, they'll pick up on that energy, and then depending on where they're at, like with what they believe, that will determine the experience they have. So if you have one person that doesn't believe that these entities exist at all, like not even at all, they'll go to this place, they could stay in that house for like a year and not experience anything. But then you have somebody that's very, that believes it or very sensitive to it, and they come in and they can immediately feel it. And then if they feel that they're not sovereign, this is important, um, if they feel that they're not sovereign, then they feel vulnerable and they feel fear. And it's the fear the entity feeds on to then come into the exploitation of your weakness, which is the fear and the belief that the entity can involve itself in you, if that
That's
makes sense. So it's
brilliant.
all manifested through the mind.
It's such a brilliant point because I've been thinking about sovereignty a lot lately and how everything we don't do for ourselves threatens our sovereignty. And so what I've realized about the ego is that the ego has been casted as something wrong and bad in this. In reality, the ego is a part of us that's never been seen, heard, or acknowledged. It's the scared little boy and girl that is crying for you to pay attention to it so you know how to stop killing yourself. And so the ego is actually who has our back. The ego is the one that acts out and screams at somebody when we're not actually protecting ourselves. And so we cast the ego like it's this bad thing, but in reality, we're the ones not actually doing what we came to this planet to do. The only thing we're in charge of is this vehicle. And so the ego, the human element of us, right? It needs to be protected. It needs to be taken care of. And when it doesn't get what it needs because it's separate from us and we're not our ego and we're not our body, it will start to act out because the only relationship that really matters is the one with ourselves. So you're talking about a person who's lost their sovereignty along the way that allows for these energies to come in because they don't feel strong enough to actually protect themselves, which is freaking incredible analogy, metaphor, and literal idea of exactly what we're trying to talk about today, about how fear is nothing but a thought based
Mm-hmm.
off of programming that we believe is real, but it's not. So let's talk a little bit about egregores, these entities, because I'm really interested in, I got this imbued with this image of what you're saying is when there's a haunting, so to speak, it's almost like something so intense emotionally happens that it leaves that emotional residue, that memory almost playing in
Yep.
that space. And if you're tuned to that type of energy, and if you're open to it, depending on whether good or bad, right?
Yep.
That's how it will determine how you deal with it. And
Yep.
so let's talk about egos as well in terms of egos, egregores, and these dark energies, and how I feel like they're, because to me everything's a lesson for us, right? Everything is
Mm-hmm.
there as a reflection to learn something else. So even when the ego is he's ugly and she's this and she's that, it's really complaining about ourselves. So
Yep.
let's talk about it from that lens. Let's bring it back up top to the higher consciousness lens and go, if we're dealing with egregores, if we're dealing with ego, if we're dealing with a lack of sovereignty, or we're dealing with bad energies,
Yep.
how is that reflecting inside of us? And what can we do to improve our place?
So I think the first thing I want to say that's really important is that egregores can be positive or negatively oriented. So it's really important to say that, because there's positive or egregores, like for example, Christ is an egregore, right? Like he's non-physical, right? But his concept, his thought form, the energy around him, and other beings like that as well, are sort of egregores. They're also sort of like ascended masters, right? So they have this crystalline placement inside of our collective consciousness, and that's where egregores eventually get to, right, where they become immortalized almost. Um, but so I just wanted to say that, because an egregore can be a very beneficial thing. It can be um, very positive and very,
Well,
uplifting. And they can be negative. It all depends on the intent, and they can also be shifted later too. So, but it depends on the intent of the creation of the egregore and what went into it. Um, but as far as like why these how these come in is through our like we had said, lack of understanding of our sovereignty. There's a universal law that exists that's called the law of consent, and this is essentially, um, we have to remember that we don't, like you said, we have control over our physical vessels so much. We don't even have, a lot of that is veiled, right? Like we don't control our blood flow
Yep.
typically. There are people that know how,
Yeah.
because they've surpassed that aspect of the veil. Um, but there's so much within our energetic body that's happening that we're just not conscious of, right? Our higher self is managing a lot of that, right? And so our higher self will essentially, with the proper understanding of these pathways that we're going down, draw to us catalysts for our development. So for example, somebody that, let's say they constantly, everywhere they go, they feel icky around other people, like they feel like they pick up everybody's energy and it's gross to them and it makes them hurt or it makes them sick, or these types of things. This is the higher self offering this catalyst to you to help you see that it doesn't have to be that way, right? To help guide you towards moving from that. Um, and so you'll get mixed in with this nastiness that you're picking up, because everybody has these different attachments, and everybody has auric fields that are full of attachments or not so full of attachments, right? Um, we need to be able to manage that. And so the higher self will bring these to us as catalysts to help us understand like what that even means, and help us navigate that. And so we'll get messages of darkness and bad experience, and then we'll get an uplifting thing that helps us understand our own power. But typically with our human mind, we almost disregard that. We have a tendency to look at the negative first. We look at the negative first, and I believe personally that this is sort of a programmatic way to help make sure we always see the light after, right? So we always look to the dark first, that as that naturally almost all humans do that. And it's the special capacity for the individual to refuse the dark, and then look at the silver lining, and look at what opportunity was given to you to learn. Because like you said, each experience is an opportunity to learn something. And so if you have a negative experience, like you feel like there's a ghosty in your room, right? And it feels all cold, and it feels all, whatever, however it is, why is this coming? Because you made this happen, right? That's what we need to accept, is that we brought this to us and allowed it. So why would we do that? Well, because we need to understand what it's like. We need to experience it so that we can understand exactly what it is. Then we can start to realize, okay, we actually don't have to engage with any of this and pull away from it. And we don't even, and what I do, because I see these things all the time, you get progressively tested, I should say. So like, shadow people and things start to show up, different entities, dark entities. And as the light worker, to transmute the darkness, you bring them into your heart and show them love. And and by doing that, it dismantles everything that they're doing. But you can't properly bring them in with love unless you've let go of the fear. So it's all about the higher self, orchestrating these events that the humans like, I don't want this. No, no, no. But the higher self knows what's best for you. It's tough love, right? It's like, no, you need to see that there's nothing to fear here. That all of this that you're experiencing is your own manifest, your own acceptance of these negative attachments. And the negative entities, they, in many cases, they do have their own consciousness. They have their own agendas, and who knows what those are. It's not like they tell you, right? That's how they work, is through deception and trickery and stuff, right? So they come in and they make you feel like you have to be scared, like you don't have control, but it's all to trick you away from your sovereignty. And if we understand that we're sovereign, and we understand that we're, in our power, um, there's nothing to be afraid of. And we can just give them a wave, tell them that we love them, and they'll slink away, or they'll come into you, right? They'll come into your heart, and through that they get transmuted and brought down to the heart center of Gaia. And that's what I experience anyways. So it's like releasing them from their prison in many ways.
That's what's so interesting, because I was wondering, they have all these exorcists, the Catholic priests. Oh man, of all the people to send to the demons is the demons. It just doesn't make any sense. But anyway, sorry, I'm the Catholic priest.
I
Uh,
That's awesome.
Much.
That's awesome. I could explain how that all works too. Yeah, if
And
you want to
what's
talk about that
yes,
one day.
I want to move into that because this is actually freaking like excited. I'm giddy over here talking about this stuff. Um, because the way I was thinking about why you were saying that, and also just how my mind works is, it is all about the love, and that's what my guides have been showing me these last couple of weeks, specifically pulling me away from the negativity, pulling me away from the fear, pulling me away from the a little bit of the external warriorness, and going, love yourself, not love other people. We don't care, Adam, if you don't like people right now. That's good, fine, don't like them.
Yep.
Just love yourself a little more. But we're talking about dark entities right now. We're talking about shadow people, right?
Yep.
So I've noticed since I've opened myself up to have channeling experiences that, yeah, I'm pretty sure I've had some not demons. I'm pretty sure I have some dark entities latch onto me for a couple of weeks, and I didn't know what it was. And man,
Yep.
that's when my mind starts really racing. And now I've been healing so much this year that when my mind goes, I'm like, why am I like this right now? And I even Saturday, I even felt I had a little bit of a dark energy on me. I got triggered in a day, and as soon as you get triggered, you open that door,
Mm-hmm.
fear, separation, and then I think that's when something came in to start feeding on my loosh, and I was able to work through it now. Again, self-regulation, that's what I was talking about in the text messages, was my ability to self-regulate. I don't need to go to therapy now to handle a situation like a trigger like that. I don't need to go cope with my old coping mechanisms to go do that. Now I just go, I breathe, I ask, I trust, I listen, I do the whole 5-step process I created. But so someone's in their room, someone's in their house, someone is somewhere, and there's darkness around them. It's
Mm-hmm.
gross, it's heavy, it's icky. I don't want to be here. But as the light warriors, as the light workers, we have to be there. That's why we're there.
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit about general darkness, how to transmute it, how to go home and rest for a couple days, how to let yourself off the hook for resting for a couple days, how to stop, how to start. How do we deal with this darkness right now? Because it's only going to get darker and louder for at least the next year. And then
Yep.
I think we're going to start shifting back into the light, but it's going to get worse. It really is. That's why they keep bringing us about love, 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 is because
Yep.
it's going to get worse, worse, worse. So, and then let's move into the weirdness and go into like exorcisms and really talk about like that.
Sure. Sure. So
Nerd out on
I
exorcisms.
think the most important thing we can do is you'll find this in different texts, sacred texts, magician work, like magical practice, energy work from the Pleiades or from Lyra. You'll find this all over the place in different capacities. But essentially, what everybody wants to do, whether they know or not, is they want to empower their energetic field with light, right? That's what they want to do because that's how we protect against this type of thing. Um, that's how we build our capacity in our auric field for a shield. It's a lot of people refer to it as the armor of God or the armor of light. Essentially, we're whatever way resonates with us, right? Like, so for me, I'm magic is the way that I rock everything. So when we're bringing in energy, like we can do it however we want. It resonates differently with all people. I like to bring in energy from the sun and the moon. So I do what's called a solar and lunar breath, fourfold breath. And you breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds. But when you're doing that, as you breathe in, you're imagining the sun rise, right? And it's beaming all this light on you and it's soaking your body in light. And then as you exhale, the sun goes back down and it goes into darkness. And then you breathe up again and the moon comes out this time. And so you're balancing the divine feminine, divine masculine energies. And you're bringing energy from these entities that are willing, ready and willing to give you energy, should you desire it. You bring that into your body and hold it there. Um, and when you're roaming about the world, you'll start to understand like when you're giving your energy to people, and you don't tend to want to give your energy away, right? You want to maintain your energy.
I get
And
tired. I started really
yeah,
getting tired now. Like I'll be talking,
yeah,
all of a sudden, like, why am I talking? Well, I talk a lot, obviously, but it's really when I think I start tiring out those people, and the energetic connection's no longer there. I
yep.
just feel it. I feel it.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, and there's nothing wrong with it. Like there's times when we want to give someone our energy, right? There's times when we want to let them sort of take from the battery, and that's how we can serve them in that moment, right? I mean, if we think about what we're really here to do, we're here to serve, and most of us are here to serve others. So we do that by occasionally allowing them to have some of our energy. However, if we do that too much, then we're going to be drained. And when we're drained, that's when we're vulnerable to uh, negative attachments, right? So that's when we're our guards down. We don't have the egg of light around us as strong. Um, and so that's the first thing that we do. But then the second thing, and this is the hardest part. This is the hardest part because it's a perspective shift that has to happen. And nobody can make anyone have that perspective shift. It's just something that you have to realize for yourself eventually, that these entities are you. They are literally you. You are one with the entities, just as you're one with the other people running around the world, just as you're one with the environment, the trees, and the earth.
You,
You're one with these dark entities as well.
I was reading a book. It's a really good book. It's over here. I'll get it later. But this woman talks about her NDEs, and she almost died twice in her life. And from that, she got to spend time in the white void with the council with God and with Jesus. And I really think that it depends on your fragments belief system is what kind of comes in so that it's more comfortable and you receive it well.
100%.
Because if I studied Norse mythology this whole time, I'm pretty sure I'd go to Valhalla,
Valhalla. Yeah,
and so which would be fucking badass, by the way.
it would. It would. Yeah.
But she talks about how they brought her into the planning process of her life, into the writing of her Akashic record, into the writing of her blueprint for her life. And she's standing there with her light family, right? And it's like 8 or 9 people that she just knows those are like, that's her, right? Again, I thought 7 or 8. I think it's 7, but we come in 7. We come down poof in a light family, and I think 7 fragments. Well, those 2 people signed up to actually be lovers in a life and rape her as a baby, and went and
Whoa.
showed her, right? They showed her basically going, they were doing the life planning, and they're like, who wants to go down there to do this to her? And everyone's like, ooh, I'll go. And they're like really excited, right? They're really happy about the fact that they're gonna go do something like this. And she's like, what? Like, what the frick? Like, this was a horrible time, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden they take them into their, and then they take her into their lives, and they showed all of the all of the trauma that they went through to get to the point to do that to her, so that she could get to the point where she is in this very moment, talking to all of them and seeing all of it, so she can go back to heaven to then help the rest of the world. And so
Yep.
the whole plan was written, and without her being molested as a child, she would have never been able to be at that point, and where she is now 20 years even after that near-death experience where she choked on her own vomit from over drinking.
Hmm.
God saved her, allowed her to live. She wanted to live. She came back, and now she's living her purpose, helping people heal, helping people ascend. And if it wasn't for her light family doing that to her in human form, which is all about the love and reality, even fear is another vibration of love, then it's just like, are you
Yeah, I've actually seen that as well. That same thing that she described. It's considered sort of a great honor, and this might be hard for some people to hear, but it's considered to be sort of an honor to support a soul that you love. So the two souls that love each other so much, the one sort of will incarnate as an enemy, and they'll, like you said, they need to prepare that enemy to be the proper enemy, to give the proper catalyst to the other soul. And it's all done through love, so that this soul can learn something about itself. And all the sacrifice that this other soul makes is seen as a beautiful act of service. At the higher perspectives, like talking like this to humans is, most people, like, it might trigger some people, right? Because it's almost like we're saying that bad people don't exist, and that's essentially where I'm going with it. They are acting out these agreed upon scenarios that we planned for ourselves, our higher selves, the self that turns around in the future, looks back upon all the incarnations and makes the pathway. And it's not until we unify with the self that we can really be a part of that planning, because we need to see the higher perspective to participate in that type of planning. And even then, we're not full participants. right? Until we,
And we're watching a freaking movie unfold, dude.
right. And in magic, they call it knowledge and conversation with the holy guardian angel. Everybody has a holy guardian angel. It's the higher self is another term for it. You get to a point where you're at knowledge and conversation, but then you come to a merging. And when you merge with the holy guardian angel, you then have to cross what's called the abyss. And that's going through all of the darkest stuff that you can imagine. And then when you come to the other side, that's when you become a master of the temple. When you become a master of the temple, you're essentially preparing the vessel for ascended master status. And when you pass away, you'll be a crystalline uh, conscious entity, and then from there you have the universe at your tips to then go around and do whatever you want to do. Um, at least that's how they talk about it in the different magical schools and Aleister Crowley and different. There's all these different kind of concepts about it, but it all makes sense when we tie it back to some of the stuff we've heard from the different galactic teams, like talking about unifying with your higher guidance or your inner being, um, and referring to it that way. It's all the sort of the same thing, and that's what I've started to notice. So I'm trying to integrate different practices, like specifically from the Pleiades, into my magical practice, and I've noticed some interesting results so far. So that's been good.
That's for me. I'm not yet at the magical practice stage. I don't know when that will be. If that
You're
will,
already doing it. Everyone's already doing it.
I really think I am, to be honest with you, because like magic is happening in my life. But beyond that, it's how I'm connecting with my guides. It's how I'm connecting with myself. It's the messages I'm receiving. Man, it's a whole other level. And so it's ironic it's ironic that you bring up Aleister Crowley because he has such a bad reputation. My human is immediately like, what are you even following this guy for? But again, bad and good doesn't exist. It's all a perspective. And now Aleister Crowley, the human, could have been a horrible human being or human, but he could have also been playing a role that perpetuated the darkness that we're now coming out of. Because think about this: without the New Age, right? Without Blotz, what's her name, Maria Blavatsky, who started Theosophy. If y'all are interested and you really want to know how the New Age is, where we're at now, look up Theosophy. That was the basis of all this crap that's happening right now with the Luciferians and the Satanists and stuff like that. But this is what I want people to understand, and this is what I've been reminding myself of. Nothing is inherently good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's all intention. Just like there's dark magic and light magic. I don't like using black and white because we've actually taken those terms, and now when you say someone's black, it immediately subconsciously puts this idea that they're less than, and people don't even realize that's happening because the English language is a slave language and it's used to cast spells on us, right? That's why it's called spelling. That's why it's called cursive. So what's funny is we're actually already magicians being English speakers now,
Yep.
learning how to do it properly. And what I'm really interested in. So this is perfect segue because I wanted to talk a little bit about my soul theory. I finally think I have it I could do it pretty quick, 2 minutes. Because what I've noticed is like I've begun to understand what the oversoul is, what the higher self spirit is, and then what I call the fragment, which is the spark of light that is required to run a human body.
Yep.
It's conscious, but it's almost conscious to the level of an animal. And the only way that you can then move into your higher self, like you said, unlock your higher self, is through that spiritual practice. It's through healing yourself, going through the trauma, and then what I believe to get into the oversoul, which the way I visualize is I have the oversoul sits over top the planet in a ship, and then the higher self is almost like I can jump up and touch her at any time. Again, my spirit's a feminine. So if you hear me say her, as I'm legitimately, my spirit is feminine. It's a freaking warrior female Valkyrie. But it's weird that I felt that way for so long, and then I went in the Marine Corps and I embraced my masculinity and I worked through all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I've really balanced my divine masculine and divine feminine, I think that's what this final boss battle is I'm actually merging those two parts of me together, like you were talking about. I'm unifying my kingdom.
Yep.
That is how you gain access to your oversoul, to the fractal, right? So the way I look at that is the oversoul was the fractal of light that started off going into form on this planet. So when we were 33 feet tall, like Thoth, an entire fractal of God could fit into a 33-foot tall body with all that DNA, and it could hold that frequency. And then when they manipulated our DNA to make us smaller when we were only 12, 13 feet tall, which can be verified by the Tomb of Gilgamesh. Even Hillary Clinton talked about it in her emails. The Tomb of Gilgamesh and the Nephilim, which I believe the Nephilim was a dark entity that they could then bring in other dark entities through. And the Tomb of Gilgamesh had Gilgamesh still in it in stasis, 13 feet tall, orange beard, looks like us, but just this giant, right? And they actually had a video of him and everything like that. Could have been doctored, could be fake, resonated. And so that's when I believe that the higher self fractal can go in there, because it's a fractal, a fragment. And then when they made us smaller, even to 5 feet, we only live to 30, 40, 50, 60 years because we don't unlock our kingdom, right? That's the fragment. And that's when I told you those numbers, and I'm not going to get into all the numbers and all that other stuff that I think. But when I started to really understand almost the science of the soul,
Mm-hmm.
the way that I understand now the physiology of the body, now I have the visualization techniques to bring them together and really create that resonance and that balance. And so let's talk about, for those people at home that are struggling right now, they're struggling, they're in the muck, they're in their egos, they're still trying to serve people when their cups are empty. Everything they're doing isn't working. They think that they're wrong. They think that they're doing something wrong, or that they're not going to be on the right timeline when this 1221 event comes, and they're just freaking out about a lot of stuff. How do we help them surrender to the fact that they're doing everything right, exactly how they need to be doing it, and they're always on time? But how do you then help them raise into the kingdom and then really unlock it? Like, how do we go from fragment to fractal to oversoul?
Interesting. So I think one of the most important things, and it's funny because Aleister Crowley is actually the one who taught me this important piece that I had been missing. Um, so I wanted to go back to him because um, there was a when he was at his prime, right? I want to say it was like 1904 or something like that. When he was at his prime, we have to remember the political landscape and like what was going on back then, um, and also his language, like how he talks, right, and how he writes, and what he says. He talks about the beast and the 666 beast and the scarlet woman, the whore of Babylon, right? Um, all of these things, the whore of Babylon is his divine feminine, right? And so when we're talking about Crowley, Crowley, uh, it's really interesting because there's this sort of fed narrative that crops up here and there because he was saying things, he was giving the secret sauce, freely to those who would follow the law, the book of the law. And the law is do as thou wilt, for that is the law. And the only thing under the law is love. And so that's all he was about, was love. But he was about, but he also, like you said, we all see divinity in a very particular way for our comprehension, right? And so he would have women hold the office of the Scarlet Woman, right? And that would be, and he was known to be sort of a womanizer in that way. Um, but that was because in his, as I understand it, he couldn't find the whole woman, the whole Scarlet Woman, the woman that had become master of the temple like he had. And so that was, I think, his ultimate search, was to find the unified woman, because he had made himself whole. But the way that he makes himself whole is by embracing the beast, right? So embracing the beast as one with him. So we, as light workers and stuff, we don't want to, we look away from the beast, right? The demon, the devil within. We look away from that because no, I don't want to look at that. I'm
So,
light and love.
so what you're saying is we want to forget our shadow because we want to be the hero.
Yeah, exactly. It's not that we want to forget it. We want to look right at it and bring it. Think of all the heroes. Think of all the heroes like Batman. Think of Batman, right? Takes his fear of bats, turns it into his weapon, right? That's sort of where we're at. Every hero has something that they're like, that's their thing, right? And so it applies there too. They need to embrace that aspect of themselves in order to really And almost all of the big story arcs of heroes are about them doing that in some fashion, right?
Can I interrupt real quick?
Absolutely.
With this, and then I wrote the question down that we had asked, and then we'll get into that because it's important. But I like this because it's actually bringing our last point full circle when you're talking about it's all love, and that there are people that come into this world to create chaos and evil to perpetuate us to move closer to the light. And so there, the way he loved, and he say he loved the beast, or he loved that side of that darkness, that dark side of the world, that dark side of life, the horror of Babylon, all that. Who's to say that God didn't need him to do what he did with the amount of love he did? Because regardless of what the results were and what we perceive them to be, he created from love. And he was
Oh yeah.
very successful in this life because it was love. And so the way I talk to people who don't believe in anything outside themselves, and when I talk about Luciferians and Satanists and all of the craziness that we know that's going on with that, at least through the storylines and narratives, is that it doesn't matter what you believe, because what they believe it with every fiber of their being. And because we are a higher consciousness fractal of God, then that means it's real. And if they believe that their fountain of youth is done by sacrificing children, well, I bet you when they do that sacrifice, I bet you they're in the most highest state of love. And that's it's so mind-blowing to step out of your human element, rise above from not from the higher self. Even my higher self's like, I'm talking like one step higher, oversoul, fractal level, where you're giddy about getting molested as a child because you know it's going to help you achieve what it is that you set your Akashic record to achieve. And so changing the narrative, right? How do we embrace the narratives and the storylines of darkness, of our shadow, and of all these things, still move to the light? Don't accept that people are hurting us and that people are evil in the world. Like that's the reason why we need to have an ego. There's a reason why we need to have a personality. Because here's the thing, man, without that constant battle that we kind of do with each other, which is really with ourselves, we're not growing, right? And so if all of the light workers were completely blissed out and they wouldn't actually fight, then the darkness would overtake. But it takes all of us being exactly who we are, our highest frequency, our highest unique signature, and to do whatever that is. And there's some people that are on this planet to protest right now. There are some people on this planet to burn this mother down, right?
Yep.
So how do we let go of judging all of these people who are living their path the way that they need to, regardless of what we perceive to be good or bad, so that then we can unlock the fragment to unlock the keys to the kingdom, so that we can then access our highest will and our highest potential. Back to the fragment, fractal, over soul.
Yeah. That's a good question. That's the trick, right? That's the real trick. How do we view it from a place of neutrality? Because that's where we have to see it. It's called the middle pillar, the middle path, the balanced way of looking at things. We have to be able to look at things from our human perspective so that we're safe in our human environment. But we also have to be able to look at things from a higher perspective and understand that there's a grander thing playing out, right? So Bobby, who went and threw a brick through a window when he was protesting, or he decided, whatever, to cause some chaos, Bobby is playing a role, and that's the role that Bobby plays, right? And it's also a role that is within you. It's a component of you that you, because you are all, right? You are source, and your source in expression, in a unique expression of like you said, a fractal or a fragmentation. And if you see that all of the other players are that as well, then you start to, like, for me, it helped to examine like my own things that I've done wrong, right? Like I've done some shitty things in my life, and luckily not too bad, but typically, but if you examine, like, you can look at the stuff that you did that was wrong, and you can even see at the time, you're like, I didn't even fully understand how wrong it was. I was just doing whatever. And you look back, you're like, why the frig did I do that? Because the you now is different, right? And it can see the error in the way that the other you was behaving. And that's sort of how you have to look at these other people that are doing things. You look at them as other yous running around doing things that you wouldn't recommend necessarily, right? But ultimately trusting and understanding that they're playing a role and that the same way you're playing a role, and your role may be to hold the light and to hold space and to love, but theirs is to be crazy, right? Like and that's the other thing too, is when we start to realize that the reason that they're outlashing like that, like that they're being so aggressive, violent, dense in their energy, is because of the trauma that they've gone through, right? So consider that they are at the beck and call of the fear dense drama that they've been feeding, right? That they've been stuck in and tied to, and they're comfortable with. They're holding on to it. Um, and then we can start to understand that, oh, they're actually like they're kind of in a bad spot right now in comparison to where I'm at. I'm sitting here feeling good about things, and and I can see them not feeling good, and it makes me feel bad. But a lot of us, what we do is we feel bad and then we blame them, like they've done that and now I feel bad, so it's their fault. No, you're feeling bad because you're not viewing your own fragmented self with love. That's why you feel bad. It's your soul saying, no, 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 that's not true. You're being untrue right now. This is not true. And the human goes, that person did this, they suck, right? And then they move on. And all they're doing in that moment is bypassing the actual issue. But every time they see it, it's an opportunity for them to look inward. And so every single thing, every single catalyst that we see, and that's how we have to almost frame it, is like step all the way back out of all of it. We just call it catalyst. We just call it contrast, right? Because we have to separate our identification with it, and every negative thing we see is contrast. And so it just becomes a question of, why are we seeing this now? Like,
So let's talk about
why are you showing this to me now?
absolutely. So let's talk about spiritual bypass because we said we were going to talk about that, and I love that concept. We'll probably hit on it almost every interview because it's key. Because you go through the gambit, right? You go through the fire, and you forge yourself a new human being, stronger, lighter, happier, kinder, more generous, right? Or you spiritually bypass, and then you have to redo that lesson in just maybe a different circumstance or situation, or sometimes it actually comes back exactly
Exact same.
the
Yep.
same way. So let's talk about awareness first of all. Let's just go from the baby step. How do we gain awareness that we're patterning, and then how do we gain awareness that we're patterning and then make a different choice to change that pattern based off of the traumatic programs that want to keep us staying where we are because it's safe?
I think for me, and I can only speak for my experience, right? For me, noticing the patterns has literally just been about being very, very, very intentional about what's going on, right? Like, what am I feeling, and allowing the feeling, because spiritual bypassing happens when we disallow the feeling, right? Whether that's a positive thing, because we can disallow and bypass positive feelings too, right? So like when our
I would
higher
ask
self,
for that.
yeah, a lot of us are, right? Because we're like, oh, we don't deserve it, or we're not worth this. I doubt I'm speaking for myself when you've had these moments where you just feel spirit just wash you with love, right? Just literally bathe you
I
in
call
love,
it
and you
body
like,
gasms.
if you feels like you're vibrating, right?
We call it body
And,
gasms.
and you're like, yeah, yeah, body gasms, exactly. And for me, like my kundalini, like from my spine shivers, and I'll like shake, and it's ridiculous. But you experience that, and then like the human goes, I don't deserve that,
Mhm.
right? Like there's no way I deserve that. um and so part of the bypassing can happen there too, where like if that's fear coming back in, being like that lack mentality, that I'm not good enough, I'm not, you know um but but most of the time when we're talking about spiritual bypassing, it's when we're seeing triggers and they keep being shown to us, and we choose to not address the issue within us, like because we drew these, we're not accepting the law of attraction, and not accepting that regardless of what we believe, we created this.
Yep.
We are, each person is all there is in their universe, right? Each person is their own universe, their own star, is how Crowley would put it. But they
That might be a little more literal than people will actually are led to believe.
yes, yes, exactly. It's exactly more literal than, yeah. uh and we all are our own universe. That's so literally what we want and desire and manifest comes to us, but we have to remember that our negative thoughts are also manifesting, right? So we can have, that's why we spiral down or we spiral up, because we haven't balanced ourselves, and we're essentially like sloppy. Abraham Hicks would say we're sloppy manifestors, right? We're manifesting all the time. We're constantly manifesting. The only time that we're not manifesting is when we go to sleep. Um, and this is one of the reasons why, if you manifest, like if you think with a lot of emotion into these positive states in the future, like as you go to sleep, it's more powerful. It's more potent, because once you turn off, one of the most important things about manifesting is like the desire, the intent gets put out into the universe, and then you let it go, right? You stop tying to it, because if you hold on to it, you're resisting it coming in.
I learned that the hard way. I was like, I would every like for 3 months, the first 3 months I was trying to manifest, I would just every day think of the same why. And I was like, why isn't this working? I was like, what if I just thought about it and let it go? And all of a sudden, like,
Yeah.
came. And I was like, oh.
Yeah, you just let it go, and then there may be inspired action that arises for you to work towards that, and so you take that inspired action. But you get less in the how do I, when is this going to happen, and in what way is it going to show up. You try to get out of that, and the easiest way to do that is to get into like a flow state and do something creative and take your mind into a whole new place, right? Or meditate or something like that. But with back to spiritual bypassing, like it's almost always when we're so the easiest example is when we keep having the same person or the type of person show up in let's say it's a romantic relationship. We keep having that cycle, right? They show up, we immediately like fall head over heels, right? And then we're so enamored by them, um and maybe they're reciprocating that, and then they just disappear, and we're just like, what happened, right? And we keep getting ghosted or something, because that's what happened to me, sort of. So something sort of like that. And but it's we refuse to look at why that's happening. Why are we drawing this to us, and why are they disappearing? And we blame them for disappearing, but we're the ones who brought this in, and if they were meant to stay, they would have stayed. And why do we even want someone who's disappeared, right? Like, they don't want us, clearly. So why that, and that's really it, is all of these whys. But it has to be self-focused. Why am I drawing this?
Why? It has to be.
Yeah, not why would they do this to me? How
Yeah,
dare they?
yeah.
No. It needs to be, why would I call this in, and what is the lesson? And as long as we're always looking for the lesson, then we're not going to be bypassing. We just need to make sure we're always looking.
It's beautiful. And all right, we're gonna move now into the light. All right, so we've gone through our trauma. We've worked through some of the fragmented trauma. We've gotten the keys to the king. We've gotten the keys to our higher self. So now we're convening with our higher self, and we're trying to level up, and we're bringing it into the light. So we're already becoming aware that we are the greatest common factor in every situation that we're in, that we are sovereign beings that are making choices in each and now moment. So I want to talk about love as a frequency, and I want to kind of destigmatize love and start really helping people understand, when people say it's all about the love, that love is the frequency of the universe, that you need to love everybody and everything. I think that's almost gotten to a point of triggering people. So let's break it down and kind of explain it. And that's what my guides have been bringing me a lot this week, is a better understanding of love. And I'm going to take it from the top for a little bit, and then I'm going to ask you some questions. But I had this amazing meditation today. And basically it was the Hemi Sync, and they guided me to ask, what's the fifth question that I need the answer to the most? What's the fourth question? What's the third? And I just sat in my spaceship above the planet, expanded my consciousness, and I just allowed that inner voice to come. The first thing they said to me was this, that all you need to focus on is being kind and generous. And then I said, well, obviously I was about to, ask, what the hell does that even mean? And then they imbued me with the understanding is, you're not being kind to somebody else because you're doing it for that person. You're being kind to that person because you're kind to yourself, and it's just what you do for other people. Generosity doesn't mean you're going to give everybody your fucking money. You're going to take your shirt off your back, and then you're going to be out in the cold, because that's that's doing it at the expense of yourself. There's no love there. There's no energy exchange. What generosity
Yes.
means, be generous with your time, be generous with your attention. And it's not saying give everybody all your time. It's saying when you are giving somebody your time, be generous enough to be, that's the only thing you're thinking about. And that's the only thing you're engaging with. I even had to
Yep.
have a conversation with my friend today because she wasn't respecting my time. And it's not the numbers I'm worried about, it's the energy that I'm willing to give. And if you're 45 minutes late to hang out with me, that's not respecting my energy, and that's not respecting my sovereignty. And I love you and I want to be here with you and I give you my undivided attention, but this is how that makes me feel. And because of that, she's like, oh, I'll make sure to not do that next, you know what I mean? And because now
Yep.
I'm learning how to communicate and self-regulate because I love myself more, which again, we'll get deeper into that understanding. That's what kindness and generosity means, is be kind to others because you're kind to yourself. Be generous to others because you already give yourself all that attention and love. Two, I am the one. First thing I imbued me with, Neo, Matrix, right? We're very Matrix time, right? The movie. I even was imbued 2 weeks ago with a better understanding of the Matrix from an internal view, because you have the external view, they're fighting the machines, they're fighting the Matrix, this and that. But in reality, if you break down really the movie from an internal lens, the machines are, it's the darkness, it's our shadow trying to wake us up, trying to unify us, and trying us to get the keys to the kingdom. Morpheus is the god of dreams. Neo is the neocortex, which was developed when they fused our second chromosome together, and that gave us the ability for higher consciousness, higher speech, love, empathy, and compassion. And why we able to walk upright on 2 feet. Crazy, right? Um,
Interesting.
and I said something else, but oh yeah, so I am the one, but so are you. You are the one. We are all one. Together we are one. But like you were saying before, this was so perfect because we are the same person, basically the same person. We are our own universe because we literally contain inside these bodies the universe. We
Yep.
are a fractal of God, which means though we don't have the same overarching power of Him in this form, we are tuned and concentrated with the same faculties, the same characteristics, and the same qualities of the Allspark, of the Source Creator,
Hmm.
because we are God and God is us. We're just in this tinier form to experience contrast, to experience lack, and to have to work together in a dualistic environment so that we can actually realize that it is all one. Because we're
Hmm.
all trying to experience ourselves in this infinite universe, which there is now an infinite amount of universes. In this dualistic universe, we're just trying to remember that we are God. We're trying to get back to the Godhead, and that's what this whole journey is to become
Yep.
your God, in my opinion. Your own God, I mean, to be a God and you create. And just like I believe as a fractal, you break off a piece of yourself that becomes a soul fractal, that then you break off 7 pieces of fragments, then become human lives. And how those lives go, you either reabsorb them or you lose them. And that's why you come into lives feeling like you'll have a piece missing, is because you literally do, because you wagered, you bet on a life and it failed, quote unquote. You didn't remember, you didn't awaken, and you stayed in your ego, you stayed in your lower chakras, and that fragment bled out or it died or it got lost, right? And then you have to take the next life and you have to go find it. So it's like an infinite game of poker, and it's an MMORPG, fucking giant LARP, and it's intense, right? So third thing,
That's a good way to look at it.
right? Through um, through focusing on love, you can manifest more kindness and generosity, and you can remember that you're one. But you also need to understand what love is, and that's what we're getting into. And through love, through the frequency of love, you'll realize that you are enough, because we are everything. We are expansiveness. We are everything has been, will be, and will ever do anything. We are all of that. And what's amazing about this life, especially with this theory that I have, that we come down in sets of 7, is that means you don't need to do everything. That means you literally only have to focus on love, which we're getting into, which to me, love, how you focus on love is, if you're doing something you don't love, stop doing it. If you're around people you don't love, stop being around them. If you're eating something that you don't love, don't eat it. And if you're eating something that makes you hate yourself later, stop eating it, because it's all about the love, but it ain't about the love of anyone else. It's about the love of ourselves. And that's the only battle in this world, because it really
Yep.
is all one, right? And then the final thing is I am home. I've never felt like I was home. This place is
Yep.
never, the earth has never felt like it's my home. I've accepted it, that I'm here. I've embraced it now, but it wasn't until this message today that I realized that I am home, because I am the infinite. I am the universe. I created Gaia. Gaia is me, and I am Gaia. So how could I not be home anywhere in the universe? I contain the universe inside this physical body.
Yep.
I am the universe. So how am I not home? And that was
Exactly.
that message that they wanted to send me. Those were the 5 messages they needed me to hear. Was that the frequency of kindness and generosity will show you that you are the one, and through love that you are enough and that you are home. And that is the 0 point. And that's what they meant by you are the one. Is one is the 0 point of consciousness, unity consciousness, 6D, where there's no separation from anything or anyone. But here's the other side of that. Just because there's no separation from anything or anyone doesn't mean we're not living a human experience. It doesn't mean that we're not going to have feelings or emotions, and we're not going to get mad, and we're not going to get angry, and we're not going to randomly have a weird thought, or we're not, you know what I mean? There is no possibility of perfection in
Yep.
form. There is no possibility of perfection in form. And so I think we need to get this idea of love, but also this idea of ascension and this idea of 5D, 6D consciousness, and kind of take it away from this fantastical, grandiose idea of what it's going to be, where unicorns, and those are other planets, those are other experiences. You'll see unicorns, you'll see all those things, right? But what we're doing here, we're the freaking warriors, guys, right? We're working through this darkness, and we're transmuting into light, and we're remembering who we are in the process. So now that I just went on my little soapbox spiel, right? I swear
I love it all.
I was a heretic probably in like 15 lives, I swear, right?
Yeah, me too.
So now that I kind of just gave that little bit of spiel, I know it resonates with you. What did you grab from that compared to what you've been learning over the last week, and what do you see similar, and what can you add to that message?
You said something really important when you were talking about showing love. You said a few things that I really liked. The one about being generous, right? And loving and understanding your own limitations as well, right? Understanding where your boundaries are, and understanding in fourth density consciousness, this would be where Jesus was hanging out. Um, we tend to have a martyr complex. We tend to want to give all we have to the other, and that's how we show our love, is by giving and giving and giving and giving. But what that does is we kill ourselves, right? It's a martyr complex. We develop this idea that we have to give everything, and that's how we serve the other. But what you're talking about is the next step, which is the fifth density understanding, that don't we don't want to give until we're depleted, because then we can't give as much, right? We want to be able to balance, and we want to be able to give such that we're in a better capacity to give more. And so we have to balance between giving to the other people and then giving to ourselves. And so whatever that means for you, right? Whatever that balance is for you, maybe you have to do 4 hours of like your own personal routine in the morning before you even talk to people, right? um, and that's fine. And then you spend a couple of hours, and that's your time with others that you're giving to them, or that you're and you'll notice too that those always go two ways, right? It's always, if it's an expansive conversation full of love and sharing, it's gonna feel uplifting most of the time. It's gonna feel good. It's not gonna feel like drudging through muck, right? Like it's going to feel good. And the important thing that you said is, when you feel like you don't love doing this, you don't love doing that, I don't love these conversations that I have with this person. um Maybe I love the person, and I see their potential, I see that them reflected in me. But that doesn't mean I'm going to give them myself, right? um as we bring all of that in and love ourselves more, all of these types of things fall away. They just naturally will fall away, because we'll withdraw. We're not going to bother. And the people that are trying to come in are going to just stop, because it's law of attraction, right? So as we love ourselves, and so it all comes back to self-love, like you were saying. um love the self. And when I think of love, it it has a stigma, like you said. People think of like romantic love, or like um an externalized love of of uh of people mostly think of like lust, almost, right? Like they think of this like romanticized version of it. But what I would call it is more like a full acceptance. It's full acceptance of the truth of the other, and the truth of the self. So it's looking at all that you are, fully accepting it, which is how you love yourself. It's accepting all the flaws that you perceive.
And by acceptance doesn't mean you don't do any work then to improve.
Yeah. No, no,
It's
no, no,
that
no.
in this moment, this is where I am, and I'm proud of where I am, but I know that I'm going to continue moving forward because that's all it is expansion. And so
Yep.
again, let's go back. I want to talk about lust because it's so important. I'm big into equations for some reason when it comes to concepts. I feel we've all been
Yep.
taught math wrong, but we've been taught enough about math to where if I put things in an equation, people can plug and play and kind of make sense of how they work. So what I've realized is that lust is the absence of affection, and affection requires respect to be established. So this is what I've realized is in our generation where you basically bang one another before you even know each other's name. I mean, it's actually happened. It we were just completely manipulated from the very beginning about what love is through Disney, through all of these programming, through mommy and daddy. Got to get married. Love is only one shade. Love is only one vibration, and it's put a fucking rock on my finger. That's $5,000. Buy me that white picket fence and a golden retriever, and now we're in love. But in reality, that's never actually ever been love whatsoever. Just like a diamond is actually still worthless just because you buy it for $10,000, and
Yep.
just because they have a control on the market. So again, it's coming back to awareness and being aware that if you're choosing people with your lower chakras, like I say, if I choose someone with my wiener, it's never going to work. If you're
Yep.
choosing people with your lower chakras because you're attracted to them and you want to like have sex with them, you're lusting after them. There's a reason why lust is a deadly sin. It's not a sin going to put you to hell. It's going to create hell.
Yep.
That's the difference.
I
Everything's been
like that.
manipulated, just tweaked slightly. You're not going to go to hell if you're greedy. You're not going to go to hell if you're lusting. You're not going to go to hell if you eat too much. But you're going to live in hell if you lust too much. You're going to live in hell if you're greedy and people start treating you like the devil. If you're going to live in hell if you're so obese you are literally imprisoned in your own body. Because again, the kingdom is within us, and so is hell. So, lust. I really believe that it takes time for affection to take place, and it takes respect from a man respecting a woman, or the masculine respecting the feminine, right? So the masculine has to respect the feminine because the feminine usually is the gatekeeper. Regardless of what physical gender the people are, the feminine person is usually the gatekeeper to sex, and masculine is usually the one trying to get in on it. And so here it is. If the feminine can have the self-respect and the patience, then to allow time to elapse so that affection can take hold that will break the lust, and through affection then respect will seep, and through respect and love can form. That is how you create love, that is how you fall in love, and that is how you have a loving, respectful, and a healthy long-term relationship.
Yep.
But it takes both sovereign beings being whole in their sovereignty,
Yes.
accepting themselves in that sovereignty for good, bad, or indifferent, themselves, not the other. Because here it is, dude. When we date somebody, when we don't accept ourselves fully, we're never going to accept them fully, and we date up. So you're going
Exactly.
to date up, only date up. So you're going to date up, which means that person's going to want you to elevate, and that you are going to want to get to their level, which means that by the time you get to their level, that they might actually be at a different level. So what if
Yep.
you dated your vibration? And what if you didn't date until you had a vibration that you literally could exist with, where you didn't need to date anyone? And that to me is creating self-love to breed then life love, to breed that twin flame, to breed that storybook ending that we all want, the happy ever after fairy tale. I believe in it. I'm a hopeless romantic.
Oh yeah, I believe in it. I
I
believe
believe
in it
in
as
it,
well.
dude.
And
But it
I'll
takes
I'll
time.
just say, like, you're totally right. You can't find, when you're looking external for the love, you won't find it. You find it within, and then the other, I think, will come. And like, I can only speak from my thoughts and expectations. I don't know, right? I don't know. We'll see what happens, but I truly believe that that we become whole, we find another who's also whole, or both very close, and then there's a merging, and that's when real love happens. And it's not a karmic, we got to learn all this shit together. we got to go through all this garbage and conflict with each other. It's like literally good from the beginning and just stays good. Now there's going to be bumps, I'm sure, of course. It's two humans dealing with each other, but these bumps will be just traversed easily, right? Like, because the person isn't like, even if you get triggered a little bit, you're going to go, oh, this is triggering me. It must be a part of myself I didn't have yet. I didn't actualize with myself yet. So what is this trigger about, and where does it come from? And some of that initially I think will be painful, because two whole people, or very close to whole people, are going to have the deepest, darkest stuff left, right? So
And a little
I think,
arrogance maybe in there too, and I'm thinking it's, there's might be some arrogance in there because spiritual ego is a real thing.
yeah. Well, that's the other thing too, is people will be like, I don't need you, right? So it's almost like both of you don't need each other, but you both sort of want each other, and you're drawn together, as how I think it'll be. And there'll probably be some conflict there. Like I don't like that. I feel like I want this person with me because I don't need them. I know I don't need them, but I still want them. Right. So that I'm interested to see like how that all pans out.
What I'm really interested to see, to play off of what you were just saying, is how, why do we inherently, other than my thing is of the mind control programming, but everything has to be an intimate relationship, especially between a man and a woman. Because I'm not just saying man and I'm saying feminine and masculine, because I regardless of if you're in a same-sex relationship or not, one person's usually more masculine and the other person's more feminine. It's energy.
Usually, yeah.
It's energy. It's impossible to. It's literally the laws of the universe. And so I'm talking about just the masculine and the feminine, right? So how do we increase our vibration of love? Like, how do we use love, right, to reflect off one another, and instead of being catalyst to one another and having to grow apart, how do we embrace the fact that we're supposed to challenge each other, we're supposed to smash heads, and how do we then get away from this whole I need to have sex and be in a marriage with every single divine masculine or divine feminine I meet? Even that's my first thought with everything. It's crazy. How do we break that and just allow the relationship to be what it is, even if it's going to be platonic? Like, why do we constantly need to be in one another, literally in one another, to have a relationship?
Yeah, I don't know what that is too. I think a lot of people deal with that. And also, especially, what I'll say is that as you open more, the feelings, the link that you establish between the other polarity of gender is stronger, right? So you'll feel it deeper. And so you can, I think that's what is the impetus for that feeling that you're talking about, where whenever like you get approached by divine feminine, you're like, hello.
Yes, I'm gonna get married. Well, what?
Yeah, I'll marry you and you and you and you and you. I'll marry. Yeah. But I know that feeling that you're talking about. So I know. And what I've found is that it's so much expanded. It just keeps expanding. And so I've been trying my best to be like reserved and like, right, but because it's challenging to understand. But I think the key to it is having both people be 100% no mask, right? Like, uh no games, no airs about their personality, no projecting of their insecurities, no, like, whenever we say something to another person to try and get them to affirm something for us, we're giving them our power, right? We're saying, I need you to say this to me so that I feel good. And in return, I'll say some nice things to you, or something like that, right? But these are just karmic things. These are misunderstandings of the nature of you both. But I think if you have open conversation about like, I'm gonna trigger you and you're gonna trigger me, we need to just accept that. And then when it happens, we need to look at it like scientists and be like, what was that experiment about?
Right.
Right? You talked about this like trip you went on with your dad, and it triggered the shit out of me. And I can't figure out, they can help you through it, right? But we need to get past the trigger first, right?
So how do we get to that point though, because it's for, especially for people in the divine union now that are struggling, right? Because they're going through their awakening, they're going through their ascension, and they're blaming each other for how they feel and all that. How do we get them to take a step back and start looking at the other relationships in their lives and practicing these tools to strengthen, say, the relationship with their parents, the relationship with their best friend? Maybe it's a step by step process. Maybe we need to go back into the original relationships of our lives, and we need to kind of heal those or let them go or let them evolve, and then go to the next one, and then the next one, and then eventually
Yeah.
we can then start working on this intimate relationship we're in, instead of having to just get divorced and then and all that. So how do we raise our vibration through focusing on love, but in a way that people don't usually talk about love? Because I'm kind of trying to I'm just seeing if you're grabbing my brain waves. um, I want to talk about love as a frequency of manifestation, and I want to get away from the hippie foo, from the Disney World, from all this crap about what love is in the human, and let's talk about love as an energetic frequency in the universe, and how people can do the work to increase their vibration, so that then they're actually attracting these kinds of people that are willing to do this kind of work with them. But it starts with them, correct?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I think it's different for everyone. I think each person has those demons, right? I'll call them demons. Those attachments to old things that happened that they've let stick in them. And in, like you said, your old friendships, relationships that maybe happened 20 years ago, like there's wounds there, right? There's gonna be wounds there. Like I remember being bullied when I was like 12 or something. And you know, you have to look at all that shit. And it's all about like the whole purpose, as far as what I've been shown, the whole purpose of us being here is to collect our fragments, like the pieces of ourselves that we lost. And you made an interesting reference when you talked about like it being like a game of poker, and we lose those chips, and we, right, it's it's kind of like that. And at least I've seen it very similar to that. And if we put it in that game kind of mentality, it's easier to detach and see it from a neutral perspective. um, but I think that it's all about finding those fragments. And so for each of us, it's different. Um, and I don't know how to talk about love. I don't know how to talk about it differently than the main, you know, it's something that I think everyone has to feel
Mm-hmm.
and then begin to comprehend within themselves. For me, it's about acceptance. It's about accepting things as they are, accepting uh, and like you said, if you notice a flaw in yourself that you believe to be a flaw, and you want to manifest a change in that area, you can love that you're there and love where you're going, right? Through acceptance of the reality, which is that I am better at this, or I am moving towards this, or you know, like I am being this, I am this, and love that as well, right?
And and that's what's so important. That's what's so important by sorry, that was a timer. We've been blasting through timers today, so by the way. So
Yeah, no worries.
um that's what's so interesting though for me, is that literally it's just been this last 2 weeks that they've really, I I think they really want me to focus on helping people translate love in a way that doesn't trigger them and they're feeling like they can't be loved, the lack of love they felt from their childhood. See, that's what I'm saying, is love has been just blanket statement as one flavor, right? But
Yep.
it's Baskin and Robbins up in this bitch. You know what I mean? Love is different. Just like we were talking about, there could be evil love. You know what I mean? There could be tough love.
All energy is love. So
All and
literally
that's
as
what I'm
we
saying.
give our awareness to someone and sit present with them, that's just flowing love to them, right?
To
We
me,
don't even
that's
have to
all love is
feel.
made of, right? That's all love is made of. Is it's made up of attention and time, the time you give someone, not the actual clock time, but your now moments.
Your
Those,
presence. Yeah.
those are important. Every now moment's important. It really, really is. And I think the more we can get away from, oh, I need to do this to be this. I need to get here to be here. I can't wait for this date. I can't. The more we can get away from that and just go, I am everything I'm everything I need to be in this now moment. Do I have everything I want? Absolutely not. Do I get triggered? Absolutely still. But those are the challenges. And the reason I think that they showed me that the universe is a game is because it is. It's a cosmic game. And that's why your higher self, your oversoul, can be giddy about going into this simulator and being molested, right? And so if we can get away, if we can stay grounded in the human, meaning, transmuting the darkness, going through our shadows, us trying to stay as present as possible, healing our temples, and bringing in more capacity to hold light, right? So we stay grounded in that. That's our focus every day. That's our self-love routine every day. Then we can then take our consciousness, then we can take the observer and stick it on the oversoul, and you're looking at everything from a 100,000 square foot view while having your feet on the ground. Now you're a giant. Now you're a
Yep.
giant. There's nothing that nobody can do, say,
Yep.
or you're going to manifest everything you want. And that's the
Yep.
key, is that I know people want to manifest more stuff. And that's why they were able to get so many people to buy into the secret, even though the secret's bullshit, because they don't even tell you any of it. They don't tell you any of it. That, oh,
They give you like half of the recipe.
or how about this? Law of attraction. Just focus on you want and then create your
Make
future.
a vision board and just
Yeah.
stare at it.
Instead of telling you, oh, by the way, if you have all these blockages like being molested and traumatized in your life, you're not going to be able to manifest shit. And they don't tell
Yep.
you that because that's what they want. They want you to buy the book for 20 bucks and then they want you to struggle. And that's why we're doing what we're doing. When I want to do a video just on the 12 universal laws, like that'll be great. But where I'm at with this whole love frequency thing is, it really comes down to how are you feeling in that moment, and don't focus on what feels good in the body. Turn in like the lower chakras, like, ooh, that food, even though it's a triple chocolate cake, and I know that I have diabetes and I might go to the hospital, but I'm going to do what feels good, right? No, I'm talking about what resonates. You have to focus on what resonates. And,
Yep.
and if you don't like something, it's for a reason. It's for a reason. It's for your highest will to move away from that. And so let's wrap up this interview on darkness and love, dark to light. Let's wrap it up on kind of over the last year, say, through your awakening, through your enlightenment, and now you're coming into your own. I'm coming into my own. I feel really great, but I'm also seeing a lot of people just starting to even go down. I'm seeing people just starting to come up. I've seen people who were ahead of me that actually evolved this year. It's been everybody on a mosaic of journey. So what have you learned? What have you learned the most this year, in terms of love, and how has that helped you advance on your path?
So I've always been really hard on myself, really, really, really hard on myself, and I think a lot of people are, right? Like, and so my biggest lesson was to relax and to stop projecting so many like expectations on myself. Uh, be more content with exactly where I'm at, as a because I jumped in, and for whatever reason, evolve. That's all I cared about. Evolve, evolve, evolve. And I had messaging coming in from my guides being like, no, but you gotta serve too. You gotta do stuff as well. You can't just sit and heal yourself constantly, right? Like that's literally so. My energy work, I just constantly sit there bringing in energy and healing myself, and reviewing all these different, like the deepest things I can find, literally calling for more. Like bring it to me, bring the demons, bring them, show them to me. And I got they showed themselves, right? And I had to go through some stuff. And I've talked about some of the stuff that I went through, and that's part of the manifestation of the demons, right? Like these are the most challenging things, and literally I'm sitting here calling them to me purposefully to try and accelerate my evolution, when I didn't really need to do that. I made it harder on myself than it was. All I had to do was be, and I'm in my most flowy state when I'm doing this type of thing, right? When I'm engaging with another person that's expanded and open, and I'm sharing whatever it is that I have stumbled across in my wanderings, right? Um, so like constantly spirits reaffirming to me that there's this balance that I need to maintain of my evolution versus service, because right now is a time for us to serve, and we'll all be called in different ways, but my calling is to do what we're doing here. And At least that's what it is for now. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens as things progress. But for me, again, it was patience, self-love, like understanding that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, doing exactly as I need to, and it's all perfect, divine timing, and really trusting in that. That's the other thing, trust and faith, because you'll find that, and I'm sure you've seen this, that until you have faith, blind faith, like you won't get the evidence. The evidence comes after the faith, right? And by the time the evidence comes, you're like, I don't need the evidence anymore. I already know that it's real, right? So it's
And
that's
I
what it
think
was a
in
lot for
words,
me.
you almost feel when you start seeing the evidence of your faith after you cried, after you've gotten these imbued with these ideas that just keep going, that you don't quit, you're almost there, and then and then you finally surrender and you finally start getting really healthy and healing inside your heart, and then all of a sudden stuff starts actually happening externally. The relationships start
Yep.
to change, new
And
people start.
people get drawn to you, like the people that are gonna help you expand, and that's how we need to look at people too. We need to, in my opinion, we need to start to look at them as expansion tools in many ways, right? If we take a step back, look at things from a neutral perspective, take like step away from the human a bit and the human's urges, and we look at people that person expands me in this manner, and and we don't know if that's going to continue. Like those 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 things can be really fiery and then fizzle, and we so I think that as we raise in vibration, like these lessons can happen so fast. Like now we can really like meet somebody and have all this catalyst lesson, and then literally just break apart. And so my caution to people is to take your time, to be patient with it, to allow all these opportunities, because as you become whole, you'll be seen as a ideal mate as well. So you'll exude confidence, and you'll exude a light that will be seen, and people will be drawn to you. And so you have to be sort of in your element to see what's good for me and what's not good for me, what's hindering me and what's not hindering me when it comes to relationships. And are people respecting my boundaries? Do these people respect me?
Am I setting
And
them?
yeah, yeah,
Am I
exactly,
setting boundaries? Am I communicating? Am I listening to
exactly.
myself? Am I stopping? Am I breathing? Am I asking? Am I listening? And then am I trusting? These are what I learned this year. I learned how to actually lead myself this year. This is what I hear. We all, for some reason, we want to be led. We all want to be led
Yes.
by other people. We all want to be told what to do. No, we don't. Our humans do, because we're so exhausted of trying to figure it out that we have literally nothing left, that we're willing to give away all of our rights and sovereignty just for the idea that we'll be safe and that will be secure. But even though we know it's not true, because the safety and security is in itself is an illusion, because we're constantly growing, we're constantly being put feet to the fire so that we can then figure out a way to
Yep.
happen for ourselves. But you're right, pace, stopping, resting, allowing yourself to fuck up, allowing yourself to fail, allowing yourself not to have any energy. And
Yep.
to me, acceptance is the first step of the being human process, the being human framework. It's self-awareness is the first one, which we talked about in the beginning. It's gaining awareness of everything that's killing you, but also everything that you love and that lights you on fire. And then it's
Yep.
accepting all of the shit that's happened to you in your past, letting go of it, and putting yourself on the hook for all the stuff that's happening in your present that you now can make a move to change. And then you have self-care and self-love, which they've been hitting me. Dude, I literally thought I was going to have to go another 2 years to complete this book, because I was like, all right, so it took me a whole year to learn self-awareness. It took me a whole year to self-accept. But in reality, I've always done self-love and I've always done self-care. I just was never good enough. But now that I've been able to clear the demons from my egregores, from my consciousness, now I can accept things I already felt and knew inside of me. And because of that, now my book will be done even quicker than I thought, because self-care and self-love is already taken care of. They just gave me everything on self-love, dude. They literally
Yeah.
gave me everything on self-love, and it has nothing to do with loving anyone else but yourself.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is
By
self-love.
loving yourself, you're loving everyone. And if you love yourself wholly, you're not going to see parts in other people that you don't love. It's a weird, beautiful, funky place to be. And I think people are getting there now, and they're starting to see that. And so it's good. I kind of was putting my finger on the pulse of the collective, like to try and see if I was, and I could feel other people there. So um, it's exciting. It's exciting, and I think just to close it off, I think that's the trick. it's Jesus said, you know, it's forgiveness. It's so simple. It's forgiving the self for being such an impediment to the self-love, right? Like you need to forgive yourself for shitting on yourself, right? um and as you do that, the more you love yourself, the less you'll have weird people coming into your life, right? They just won't. They
Residents,
just
the
won't.
residents doesn't know that they can't deal with how much you love yourself. I've realized that with a close relationship of mine is every time that I start to really vibrate high. I mean, I'm like love bombed. I've been blissed out for the last week. It's been nuts. I mean, I've been challenged and everything, but I don't. People avoid me
Yeah.
that are close.
Yes.
They
They
avoid.
won't see you. They won't see
And
you.
what am
Yeah.
I doing? Am I doing something? And I realized after so long of watching the patterns and everything, I'm not doing anything wrong. There's nothing I'm doing wrong. I'm actually doing everything correct, and that's why I'm getting this reaction. So it's almost like now it's a beacon. I'm like, okay, I'm on the right path. I'm doing good. And
Yep.
so I want to close out on this, and then I'll do the outro. Um, how can you love yourselves a little more on this journey? You know, how can you bring more love into your life? How can you forgive yourself some more? How can you gain some more clarity on your journey? And what can you do different today or tomorrow that you didn't do today or yesterday that's going to take you a little bit further on your journey? And what I've learned is you got to ask for help. And it's not just
Mm.
asking for help to external to people and resources and organizations. Those are very important for your human to heal. What I'm talking about is asking for help for something bigger than yourself, and not just God, source, whatever you want to call it. I'm talking about your higher self is real. Your oversoul is real. Your light family is real. And anything that you believe in, if it resonates with you, then it's freaking real. And this is what I
Yep.
realized is when you close your eyes, we're in the field of the quantum. We're in the field of possibility. And if we can visualize and raise our vibration to that visualized outcome, and when we open our eyes, we take that, we push it through our pineal gland into the realm of actuality, reality, and then that is how we manifest everything that it is that we want. But in reality, when you remember who you are, what you are, and why you are here, you stop really trying to manifest too much stuff because you're just waiting for the universe to bring you some surprises because it's so much more imaginative than
Yep.
your own. And so I'm really grateful that you all joined us for this long ass interview. It's probably like an hour and 40 minutes. It's gonna be great. I loved every second of it with you, Sean. This has been wonderful.
Me
Uh,
too.
I really appreciate all of you for the third edition of Shadow to Hero, from Shadow to Hero. This is volume 3. I think we're going to call it Dark to Light, and and I think we're going to do this at least weekly, and then eventually we'll get some lives going and everything like that. If there's anybody in the audience that's made it this far, that has any comments, that wants to talk with me and Sean offline, you know, just hit us up. We're all about that. We're all about serving right now as well as we serve ourselves and as we heal. And you know, really thank you so much for joining us again for this and for giving us your time and sharing your energy with us, because when we're recording this we can already feel the people in the now moment, in the now time continuum, already being with us in this. And so Sean, if you have anything that you want to leave your audience with, and then we'll sign off.
I just want to tell everyone that I love them. Keep shining.
Perfect. All right, brother, I love you too, man. I'll talk to you soon. All right,
I love you. Yeah. Take care, brother.
take care.